Sneaks, the best three-man weave in podcast land. I'm your guy, Shaun Davis at SD2 Mics. Got the guys, my guys running the wing with me, Bryan Crawford at B_Craw4D and Chris Cason at C4Dunk. This is our initial episode for the year of 2021, NBA season on the horizon. And we're going to start off talking this episode about the Chicago Bulls, one preseason game in the bank. And fellas, what did you pull from that one preseason game, if you can pull anything?
I mean, they definitely watchable again. Like, I really, you know what I'm saying? Like, I hadn't paid attention to the Bulls. I didn't pay attention to the Bulls at all during the Hoiberg era and none during the Boylan era. So that's what, 5 years? So, I mean, you know, in that respect, they got my attention. You know, they got a lot of talent. You know, they're going to be exciting as far as, like, you know, playing up tempo, getting up and down the floor. And that's kind of what fans want to see. So, I mean, they're watchable, but I think for me, that was like my initial takeaway from it is, you know, they're a team that people will be paying attention to. So I think that's good because, I mean, it's been a while since anybody paid attention to the Bulls for something, you know, for actually being good instead of just being really bad and having terrible coaches. So that was my initial takeaway from it.
Yeah, I guess we should welcome you to the viewing audience because you haven't watched Bulls basketball in like 5 years, right?
It's better basketball out there. So I ain't got to watch
Hey, I'm all for the league pass, especially right now.
For real.
C4, what about you? Anything from that last night's game that jumped out immediately that made you say, you know, this is different?
Oh, well, one, it was against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and if it's any indication, it's going to be a long season for them, Lloyd Markkanen, and everybody. But you know, they're in a different state that the Bulls are in. But like BC said, I think they'll be watchable again, and you know, fans will be. You don't have to, you know, throw those ticket packages together to get people to come to games. Now you actually have like some name recognition, you know, on the roster, and that's talent. You know, I think I said it, you know, with the trade for Vooch and then bringing Lonzo there and DeMar this offseason, they actually have like a legitimate point guard, a guy who can set people up, get guys easy buckets, can make a post entry pass without any problem. So, I mean, I'm not going to call them a complete team, but this is probably one of, would you say, like the best Bull teams outside of like the Jimmy Butler era Bulls? It's only been like a few years, but like this is probably the best team I would say like since that 20. I think like I can't even think of the years anymore. But yeah, I mean, I'm just excited that, you know, fans have like reasons to watch Bulls games again.
You know what? I don't even know if it's like the best team, but I think it is the team that Bulls fans finally got that they've been wanting for so long, and that's a name team.
Yeah,
you got a bunch of dudes, you got a bunch of name guys on there, and that's what Bulls fans have wanted for a while. So, you know, in that respect, there which has been granted. So now it's just, you know, it's just a matter of putting it all together on the court.
Yep,
it's amazing because I know BC, you mentioned in a tweet yesterday about the Chicago connection that exists out there with the Lakers. And, you know, you look here on the Chicago Bulls, it's an LA connection. It's either LA or like UCLA, a lot of guys on this roster. And it just goes to say, like, the way the NBA landscape has changed. Like, it's all about relationships and your guys and wanting to play with your guys rather than, you know, maybe wanting to compete against your guys and beat your guys. Mark Eversley and Arturas Karnisovas on the fly. How would you rate the job they've done kind of reconstructing this roster in the span of like maybe a year and a half to 2 years?
On the reconstruction side, I mean, I give them an A+. I mean, they basically flipped that roster over and, like, you know, they got a bunch of guys in there that can actually play. You know, you talk about Lonzo Ball, you know, you got veteran in DeMar DeRozan, you got Vooch, you know, big man who I love just, you know, because he is so skilled. So, you know, you put all that together, in terms of like you look at that roster from 3 years ago where it basically had like no talent to like what it has now. I mean, I think they did a great job of, a great job of acquiring pieces that, that are young and who can play. I mean, I think it still probably skews more on the younger side, but I mean, they do have a lot of guys with some experience. So, I mean, you kind of need both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have to give them an A as well. Just looking at, when they both were, when they both came to the team, the pieces that was here, the state of the organization and what it's changed into and went from looking very bleak to now promising. Now you can start to like actually envision free agents looking at Chicago as like a realistic destination in the coming years. So yeah, I mean, they've done a good job, but just being a Bulls fan for most of my life, I always reserve judgment until you see the final product and how everything. Because I'm pretty sure this isn't like the end all be all for them. There's like some more moves I'm pretty sure they want to make. That might not necessarily be this year. A huge thing is going to be like what happens with when it's time to pay Zach, like what they do then. But for right now, I would give them an A.
I mean, I guess, the residue of Garpax that they can always point to is that we made the right move moving Jimmy Butler and having Zach LaVine in that trade as it stands now. Hindsight is 20/20 as always. But, moving forward, that's one of the biggest decisions, right? Like, do we max out Zach? Do we give him the max? And then what other things need to be done to build around this team? How is Patrick Williams going to continue to develop? Are we expecting him to be the number 2 on a championship squad, or is he going to be just that ancillary piece, that youngster that we can depend on? Kind of like the role, I guess, that Kawhi played early on in his career for the Spurs. When you had Ginobili, you had the big three with Tim Duncan, Jamal Lee, and Tony Parker. So they put themselves in a very advantageous position, to have some room coming up cap-wise in the next 2 or 3 years, to have a young core that they can really mess around with. If they can use Kobe White possibly in a trade, moving forward to get somebody to add somebody to the squad. So, I give them an A as well. I think they've done a very good job in a short span, and I'm excited. Give me one thing. And I know, like you said, it's just a preseason. We don't know how everything's going to play out in the regular season. If there's one thing about this team that you can hang your hat on, what would it be? And I'll jump out there first. I'm pretty sure that this team is going to be a top 10 team in free throw attempts. I feel pretty comfortable about that with the players that they have, because Vooch and Zach both got to the free throw line a lot when they played together towards the end of last season. When you add DeMar DeRozan, someone who gets to the free throw line, and some of the other players that they have, young aggressive players, I think they'll be top 10 in free throw attempts, which bodes well that they can shoot it well at a 70% clip.
I think there might be a top 10 offensive team too. I think they're gonna score a lot of points, a whole lot of points. I mean, and if they don't, they're gonna shoot for it. You know what I'm saying? Zach gonna get his attempts. DeMar DeRozan gonna get his attempts. Vooch gonna get his attempts. And the way Lonzo pushes the ball and sees the floor, I think they're gonna be I think they're definitely gonna be a high scoring team for most of the season. I'll probably give them top 10 in offense.
Well, I mean, I agree with both of those premises. I do think they'll be a lot better defensively. Once again, it's the Cavs, and a lot of coaches are trying to work things in. But what I saw from just that first game is like communication. Even on like backdoor cuts, things like that. Having Lonzo, just he's calling out things. Vooch is calling out things. There's just a lot better communication on that side of the floor. And I mean, it's one thing to do that, during the preseason, but it also looks like there's been a focus, in training camp when you see guys like calling out things and just a little attention to details. I see them being a lot better defensively than the years past.
See, that's the part of it I'm not sold on because Billy Donovan, that team in Oklahoma City wasn't great defensively. He doesn't have a lot of defensive players. Like Zach just doesn't guard anybody. He won't guard anybody. And I mean, I know Pat Williams will. Vooch, he doesn't really guard anybody either. Like it's hit or miss on the defensive side. I think they could probably. I mean, if they get guys, if Donovan could come up with a scheme and he can get guys to buy into it, then I think it'll work. But like individually, I mean, the only thing Lonzo really does, he got great hands, great anticipation. He gets in the pass lane, he gets a lot of steals, but his man could cook him like every night. Like he giving up a bunch of points. So that remains to be seen.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of people are expecting Alex Caruso to be this defensive stopper too. And if you watched any of the Lakers last year, you saw him get cooked over and over.
I don't even know where that came from. Like,
yeah,
to me,
I just think it's with him. Like when you're playing hard, because we really don't see a lot of guys. A lot of things look effortless, but with him, you actually see like, oh, that dude is playing hard because he's red in the face and things like that. I think that's where that comes from. But like, I don't
get cooked.
Yeah, I don't think he's this defensive stopper.
Like, what are we talking about?
Say he's red because he's getting cooked.
Yeah, high energy. He's a high energy player. So like a lot of the stuff he does, it looks like he's going out there and playing hard, which I'm sure he is. But yeah, defensive stopper. Who really is in the league really anymore? Like everybody's, going to get buckets scored on them.
It's interesting because the landscape of the East definitely has gotten a lot more interesting, I would say, in the last 2 or 3 years, right? I would say 3 years ago, the East was really dull, not a lot of depth. And now when you look at it, I did get an opportunity to look at Orlando playing Boston the other night. And by the way, BC, your boy, he looks really good.
Who that called?
Cole Anthony looks really good, and they've been playing Cole Anthony and Jalen Suggs together.
I don't know how that's going to work.
Yeah, that's not going to work, but yeah.
No, it was working because Cole has improved his spot-up shooting.
Yeah,
so Cole is small.
Yeah,
Cole is, defensively, it might be hard. But offensively, like in certain spots, like towards the end of the game when they have one possession, when they're trying to score, I watched it for a short spurt, and I was like, yo, this is really interesting because both of these guys can create, and both of them can shoot, so you really can't come off of either one. And surprisingly, Cole was the one with the ball in his hands more when they were on the court.
What do they do when Markelle Fultz gets back?
Yeah, because they do have a log jam at the point guard position. But Markelle is always injured, though.
And he about to have another address.
You think so?
Point, yeah. I think they locked in Cole, and obviously, they just drafted Jalen Suggs. So there's Markelle Fultz is redundant, and that's on top of the fact that he is not the player he was when he was coming out of Washington. So, at that point, you could probably just move on from him. They basically drafted over him anyway.
To circle back to what I was really trying to get at, just mentioning Orlando, I was like, yo, they have a lot of young talent. They're probably about a year or two away. I'm looking at Jaylen Brown, who every year, before I remember the first night we saw him step on the floor at the United Center, we were sitting there saying, okay, this kid has a chance. And he continues to get better. Jason Tatum is the one everybody talks about. But really, him not being there in the playoffs and being hurt, even though they really had no chance against Brooklyn, you saw how much he was missed on both ends of the court. So, I'm looking forward to seeing how they look. Al Horford goes back there. Dennis Schroeder, the biggest, dumbest move of free agency, if all reports are true, turning down money and ending up with the Boston Celtics. You talk about Brooklyn, talk about Philadelphia. We'll get to them and Ben Simmons in a moment. Talk about Milwaukee, the defending champions. And then Atlanta. Just the depth of the East from a talent standpoint is vastly improved from what it was 2 years ago. So even though the Bulls roster has gotten better, it's just not automatic that they're just going to move up in the conference.
Yeah, the East definitely isn't top heavy anymore. I think the talent is, and the competition that these teams are going to bring is kind of spread out. To, I mean, we're looking at least 8, 9, 10 teams deep. In terms of teams that'll not necessarily saying that they're gonna make playoffs, but they're gonna give other teams a good run for their money because they have the talent. So, and that's kind of what you want, where as opposed to if it's just me and 1 or 2 teams at the top and then everybody else playing, like all these teams really have a legitimate shot of making the playoffs and making it tough for somebody if they get in there.
Yeah, that's what I see. Like just when you go to, even if you go to like the Hornets, the Knicks, Atlanta Hawks, there really aren't too many teams you can say in the East anymore. Like, okay, this is a night off. We can go out, and do what we want. Like you really have to lock in each night, which is a good thing, across the league because you're getting more competitive games as opposed to one team just coming in kind of lackadaisical and still, beating the team by like 15.
Yeah.
So as far as the Eastern Conference or just the NBA at large, give me the team or players like you're really looking forward to watching or seeing, like what they did over the summer and what they're going to come back with in their bag. Or is this team for real? Was last season a fluke? Are they going to take another step forward? Like who's getting the extra time on your league pass?
Man, I don't even know who on the rosters. Like I gotta actually go across and just look because it's like I haven't really been too locked into the season yet. Like I just realized the other day we was already having preseason games.
Yeah.
But I mean, the obvious would clearly would be the Lakers. Just with everything that they got going on over there. You want to see how that comes together and if it's gonna be good as it looks on paper. The Brooklyn situation is another one, and a lot of that just kind of hinges on Kyrie and how they address that. I am looking forward to watching the Hawks and also the Knicks. I think Tibbs is. It seems like Tibbs has these guys ready to kind of take that next step, and I know how good of a coach he is. I'm a big fan of Tibbs. So I mean, those are the situations I'm really looking at. I definitely want to see what's up with the Lakers. The Brooklyn situation is going to be intriguing all year, and the Knicks. Obviously the Bulls. Just to see how that shakes out.
Yeah, you talk about the Knicks. It was very interesting with D Rose and Kemba Walker reminiscing on media day. D Rose's senior year, his only loss was at MSG for a team led by Kemba Walker. So, just the fact that they had that memory and they were able to laugh about it and share that and have that connection. Defensively, Tibbs and the Knicks are going to be locked in, right? You see it all over. I don't know. Knicks fans are expecting R.J. Barrett to make this huge leap to become like this all-star. And, they throw stats and it's like, I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see him being the number 2. When the chips are down, I think Tibbs gives the ball to Derek before he gives the ball to R.J. Barrett in the clutch. And C4, before you answer the question, I'm going to go players. I came away impressed, especially towards the end of last season with the top 2 rookies. And I really especially the way Anthony Edwards came on.
I forgot about him.
I'm really looking forward to seeing, will it become like a Stephon Marbury KG situation in Minnesota where Anthony Edwards wants to be the guy, even though, Minnesota already has that guy and Cat. And
they don't want to it. He is the guy.
Yeah.
He is the guy in Minnesota.
You think so already?
Oh, no question.
All right.
No question.
I'm looking forward to seeing what he brings to the table and what he adds to his bag. He already has the confidence. And then, of course, LaMelo Ball. I'm just looking forward to seeing, how his game evolves. And, if that stripper time works for him.
You know, Charlotte. I think no, it's not Charlotte. I think they probably top 2, 3 cities with strip clubs per capita. I know Tampa for a fact is number 1, but I know Charlotte is in like the top 5.
Right.
It's a bad place to have a young team.
So, yeah, those two guys are really who I'm watching. And you could throw Wiseman in there because Golden State is now fully healthy. He's back healthy. Just seeing how Steve Kerr is going to implement him and what they do next Draymond, that should be interesting as well. What about you, C4?
I think for me, just in terms of players, Ja Morant easily is a guy I've been watching for the last 2 years.
That his leadership.
Yeah, man, that Memphis team is like that's a team that you don't want to play against because none of those dudes care at all, like who you are, and they're going at your neck. So I love that, about them. They might be like one of like the grittiest teams, like in the league. When you look at them, you got Jaren Jackson.
Did they take a step back? I mean, Jaren Jackson's coming back healthy. Did they take a step back from a roster standpoint, like moving Valanciunas?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It gives those other young guys like, man, they got some athletes.
Valanciunas meant a lot though.
Yeah.
Down there, physicality, control the paint, rebounding.
Yeah. But they got what's his name? Jesus Christ, I forget this dude's name. It'll come to me. But yeah, Ja.
Not X Tillman.
No.
Oh, Brandon Clark.
They got Clark, somebody else that I'm forgetting right now. I can't put a name to it. Isn't Steven Adams over there, right?
Yeah, Steven Adams.
Steven Adams.
Is he in Memphis? I didn't know.
Yeah,
that was the trade. Yep.
But yeah, Ja, Ben Simmons. Definitely, I'm looking forward to seeing like what happens with that situation. Hey, Cunningham in Detroit, he's going to have the ball in his hands. I'm also looking forward to seeing what happens with this Kyrie situation. Just because I think they're a team that's pretty much they would be the odds-on favorite if everything was going right. But with this situation, you have a very headstrong guy who has his own beliefs. Like
he is not going to fold.
Yeah, it's like, does the team you try and accommodate that, or do you like, all right, bro? Well, we respect your decision, but we got to move on. Over here, we can't have that type of like inconsistency throughout the season because not only is he missing 43 games, but then you got to take into account what happens if he gets injured, just with his history and things like that. So it's almost when you're trying to win a championship, everybody has to be on the same page. Everybody has to be locked in. And if you got one guy, who pretty much has 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you can't really ride with that, especially with the injury history of these guys. So those are like the players I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
Kyrie could stand to miss potentially 50 games?
50 games, yeah. And then we don't know how things move. We don't know if localities change rules as things change throughout the season and maybe become more stringent like San Francisco.
I think it's going to go the other way, but I know we're going to get into that later. I don't see this being sustainable.
Yeah. So now that you mentioned those guys, you talk about the rookies in this rookie class. There's a lot of losses that's getting ready to come down in Houston, but Kevin Porter and Jalen Green are going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, it's just what's he going to do with John Wall?
Yeah, hopefully they're fun. They're going to be fun to watch, but it's just like when you got two guys vying for just having the ball in their hands.
Yeah.
It's just like that's it. And then you got Josh Christopher on the bench. Eric Gordon is still over there. I forgot he was still over there. It's just like I'm trying to figure out what.
That's not exactly the best town to have a lot of young cats.
Yeah, not exactly my point. It's just they got to get at least 2 solid vets over there just to make sure everybody is doing what they need to do to make sure the focus is hey, go out and have your fun. But like I said, Houston is one of those cities that could swallow kids 19 through 23 rings, they can swallow them up if you don't have like the right type of leadership on that roster. And I don't know if John Wall is even, are they allowing them around the team, or it's just
Yeah,
pretty
he
much
was on the bench the other night, or actually last night when they played, but they still trying to work out a deal where they can, get him
they're
out
not
of there.
able to move him. But
Let's go ahead and switch to the Kyrie Brooklyn Nets situation. Perfect segue. You just brought that up, C4. And C4, you do a lot of writing and have a lot of conversations with athletes and talking about health and working out and how they take care of themselves. How do you think, because I think a lot of guys, for a lot of different reasons, have gone ahead and just kind of yielded to going ahead and getting the vaccination to be able to play and to secure their finances and their salaries. But overall, how many athletes in general do you think kind of have the same mentality that Kyrie Irving might have, especially minorities?
I think fairly, like, mostly all of the guys. If you haven't had, a lot of these guys have had family members impacted by, COVID. You go to Karl Anthony Towns, who lost his mother, from complications from COVID. It's been like it's been a subject I tried to stay away from, because I was one who like waited to the last minute to get vaccinated because I wanted to make sure I did all of my research. The thing with these guys that I can see why people would be upset with them is because they have the access to the best medical, best healthcare, the best information. But you're trying to get a guy to put something in his body, and he's thinking, well, what happens in 15 to 20 years? And that's understandable. But I think all of these guys, literally, that's anybody, you look at the communities these guys are coming from. We don't really have trust in, medicine like that.
Right.
Begin with, especially with how fast this vaccine came up. But I think most guys had those thoughts, those doubts. I mean, a lot of them have intimated those, like LeBron voiced like his thought process. Andrew Wiggins just recently got vaccinated, and he voiced his concerns about. I think everybody had those concerns, but it's one of those situations now where you really, all of these employers are mandating that this happens. So, I mean, if you want to continue playing basketball, I guess you got to do it.
Yeah, myself personally, man, I went ahead and did it immediately, but I had something that was pertinent that kind of pushed me over the edge, that was very personal, and say, you know what, I might have taken a little bit more time to think about it, but because of this reason, I have to do it,
Right.
And so, I made that choice, but I'm in agreement with all the players taking that time and doing the research. C4, you've been at the forefront voicing your opinion about, I guess, the other side kind of bullying those that have chosen to take their time and might not be vaccinated at this time, and speaking out and saying, yo, man, be cool and just allow people to have their own outlook and the ability to make their own decision based upon the information that they have at hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this stuff is turning definitely political. The thing with the Kyrie situation, I mean, he came out and said he doesn't want it to be a distraction. It's like, yo, how do you not be? Yeah, yo, you're in the media capital of the world. You're one of the biggest names in the league. Yeah. You're on the team with one of the star heaviest rosters. How is this not a distraction? Yo, your teammates going to be answering questions about you all year long. So I don't know. It's just a tough situation for those guys to be in. I don't know what his thought process is, because he really hasn't been vocal about it. He wanted everybody to respect his privacy, but I don't know. It's just a weird situation. It's weird times to be in, because I can understand, these are guys. Think about the last time these guys have been told you need to do this, or you can't do this. That plays a part in it too. So now you're going to try and force me to do something. Yeah. So it's a lot that goes into play with that, but that's one of the situations where I'm like, what does he do? He's not going to give in to peer pressure. He's going to have to come to understand for himself. Do I want to do this for myself, or You know, I mean, is this the end? Is this the end of Kyrie and the NBA?
Man, for me, like listen, I'm with anybody who doesn't feel like they have to be forced or coerced to do something that they don't want to do. We've never been in a time where people say, hey, you can't go in this restaurant if you ain't took this shot, or you can't go in this gym, or you can't go in this arena, or you can't go to work. And to me, that whole thing is suspect. I think what Chris said is very, very important. It's a very political issue. You know, I live in the South, right? So they're not mandating anything around here. But I notice in all of the liberal cities, you know, and basically people who identify liberally democratic, they all with it. You know, a lot of people who, you know, identify with conservative, you know, Republican, a lot of them have taken the shots, but they're not with the mandates. Right. And I think when you basically tell people that they no longer have autonomy over their body, you know, and when you remove personal choice, that I have a problem with. I'm not saying that the pandemic isn't real. Obviously, we know it's real. We know people that's died. I have people in my own family that died. But I think now what's being pushed is not medical science or education, it's fear. You know, and it's a lot of bullying going on. So I'm not with that. I definitely don't agree with that. You know, if you haven't taken the shot, that's your business. If you took it, that's your business too. You know, at the end of the day, just like with anything else, you know, it's going to come down to a personal decision. I just don't like the way it's being sold. I don't like the way it's being pushed. I had a big problem with that. Kyrie, not going to fold. Like I said earlier, he will probably walk away from basketball before they make him do something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not like an Andrew Wiggins. You know, Andrew Wiggins is, you know, he succumbed to the pressure, you know, for whatever reason. But Kyrie, it's not going to happen. The other thing is we don't know how many players in the league aren't vaccinated. You know, we know Bradley Beal is another one. I don't think he's going to fold either. So I think ultimately these mandates are not going to work. I think it's just a thing that's going to blow up in people's faces, particularly when you start looking at the fact, like, forget these basketball players. You got cops that don't want to take the vaccine. You got firemen that don't want to take the vaccine. You got
in New York, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And these people are being fired, you know, they're being forced out, and it's just an unsustainable situation. Like, you can't operate like that. You cannot eliminate basically half of your profit center. You can't do that. It just mathematically, it doesn't make sense. So me personally, I see a shift coming, you know, probably sooner rather than later, but they start walking back some of these things. Because it's gonna, you know, it's gonna start affect industry. It's gonna start affect business. You know, you're not gonna be able to get things. So the whole thing has to me started out about health, and now it's become very almost exclusively political. And for somebody like myself who's not very political at all, like, I see through the BS, and you can't get me with it. So
yeah, you're right, man. It's gotten to the point where the state of Illinois, I think over the last 10 years, has lost close to 1.2 million people in population in the state. And they've taken this opportunity to go and take shots at a state like Texas that has tried to take autonomy over bodies with the abortion law and with the mandates and the way they're going and the way the coronavirus rate has risen in the state of Texas. The state of Illinois is actually taking out ads and Texas newspapers trying to invite people to come back to Illinois because of this.
I mean, look, the virus has been it's been red hot in the South. I can't even front. Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, red hot. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, at the same time, what I do respect is, again, you know, I could do without all the racism and all the history of the South. Don't get me wrong about that. But what I do respect is the fact that, people aren't not being forced to do anything. They are still being given the choice. Now, that could be good. It could be bad. You know, I mean, I personally still wear my mask when I go out. I see people who don't wear their mask, but that don't bother me. I ain't got no problem with that. If I got my mask on, that's cool. That's my personal choice to protect myself. I'm with that. But, and if you mandate it in your store, I'm cool with that too. But I mean, you talking about putting something in your body that you can't get out once it's in there. And I think that changes the whole conversation. At least for me, it does.
I will say this as we get ready to switch over to the Ben Simmons and Philadelphia 76ers situation. Mark Spears, really brilliant piece, the way he approached the Kyrie Irving situation. His concern was, Kyrie, you were one of the creators of this situation. Like, you convinced KD to come to Brooklyn with you. You were going to make the move. You convinced KD. And
that's not fair. That's not fair.
He wasn't saying. He was just saying you have to look at it like, man, this is something else that's probably on Kyrie's mind. And like you said, Kyrie's the type of dude where he probably doesn't care about that as well. But it's like, man, you kind of caused this to happen.
And he didn't cause the pandemic, though. That changed everything.
Oh, absolutely. That changed everything.
He had nothing to do with that. He had nothing to do with the vaccine. He had nothing to do with the mandate. So I think you have to separate that stuff, right? At least for me, I can. Like, you have to. These are two completely different situations. I mean, this is an obstacle that Kyrie feels is in his way that wasn't there 18 months ago. This is getting set up. So it's like there should always be room for readjustment and reevaluation. And I think that's what's gotten lost. And I think and a lot of smart people, Mark Spears, Vince Goodwill, that's my guy. He wrote something I didn't completely agree with either. But, I'll leave it at this. If there is a chance, or if any situation where risk is involved, the personal choice has to be allowed.
C4, anything else?
No, I mean, I agree with all of that. It's one of those situations where just having conversation with people where it's just like another thing that, is dividing people. We're looking at these anti-vaxxers, like they're in the wrong. Anti-vaxxers are looking at us the wrong way. It's just like, it really makes no sense. It all comes down to choice. I mean, educating yourself thoroughly and not, just going to social media to get your information, but actually, talking to your doctor, talking to physicians and things like that. But at the end, it's like, it's all political, at the end of the day. And I agree with BC, like, once you take personal choice out of things, like, that's where like a line has to be drawn for a lot of people. And I'm pretty sure that's at the forefront of Kyrie's thinking. He's like, I don't want to put something in. This is my livelihood. This is how I make my money. Like, I don't trust it. Like, we should at least have some room to respect that. But I mean, unfortunately, it's a business. At the same time, that business doesn't stop for one person either. So just in his situation, I love seeing Kyrie play. So I hope something can be worked out. But just looking at knowing a little bit about, how he thinks and how he goes about business, I see this as a situation where we're not going to see him play this year, because I don't think as a team you can go forward having a guy of that magnitude, that has that type of gravity around him. You can't have him halfway in, halfway out. It's kind of unfair to the other guys on the team, and it kind of puts you at a disadvantage in terms of like a chemistry standpoint.
Yeah, as a whole, I hope we continue to have respect for one another. And I think one of the things that people forget is that agreement is a powerful thing. But in order to have agreement, you don't necessarily have to see things the same way.
That's true.
At the end of the day, no matter what side you're on, everybody in this fight wants to be healthy. Like, there's nobody in this fight that does not want to live.
Exactly.
It does not want to be healthy.
Here's the funniest thing that I distinctly remember, because like I said, I'm not political at all. I pay attention to everything. The same people that's for the vaccine now was very much against it when Trump was in office. They wasn't with it.
So now
flip. I'm just saying, this is what I noticed.
That's just another political side. Exactly. Ben Simmons has only received 25% of his salary. He was supposed to receive 100% of it by November the 11th. they withheld the 25% he was supposed to receive on October the 1st, and he was supposed to receive another 50% on November 11th. They are withholding that. They put it in escrow, and then they're going to be taking out a fine for each day that he has not reported to Philadelphia 76ers camp. This situation has gotten ugly. Doc Rivers went on national TV, I guess, trying to clean up the things that he said post Game 7 against the Atlanta Hawks in the playoffs. And then a week later, here's Joel Embiid, which, look, I didn't have a problem with Joel Embiid and what he said. It didn't make anything better. But if you just want to know somebody just being honest about how they saw the situation and how he felt like they tried to make Ben Simmons as comfortable as anybody else on their squad over the last 2 or 3 years. And he pointed out, we basically chose Ben over Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
That's basically what happened.
Yeah.
And hearing that and how forthcoming he was and how frustrated he was that Ben is just not going to show up. And BC, we're going to get into it, but you said something in our text threads that I think is very interesting, and that is the involvement of Clutch Sports and this entire thing, not just with the Ben Simmons situation, but just the NBA at large. And I want you to touch on that. But how do you think this thing is going to play out? Do you see Ben Simmons caving in? That's a lot of money to leave on the table. And do you think he's really willing to sit out the year to force this trade?
I mean, I personally don't think Ben Simmons cares about anything other than himself. But I honestly, at this point, I think this is less about him as a player because we know who and what he is. We know what he can do. We know what he can't do. We know what he won't do. But I do think this is an indictment on Rich Paul. And I think this is an indictment on Clutch Sports. And I think he's getting very bad advice. And I think that whole entire situation in my mind amounts to just bad representation. And I think, eventually it'll, once LeBron stops playing, it'll dissolve, just like Rock Nation Sports. It's a boutique shop. It's basically a fad. And the only real power that Rich Paul has is his relationship with LeBron James. That's it. You know what I'm saying? And that's how he attracts clients. That's how he, has guys on his roster that he can negotiate deals for. But I think this shows a lot of immaturity on both the part of the player and the agent, because when you know and you understand the type of reputation that your client has based on things on the court that he actually can control and he doesn't, you can't strong arm anybody. You can't strong arm the team he plays for. You can't strong arm whatever team you're trying to get him to, because they see it. You can't even sell them on this, on the fact that, if you put him in a better situation, he's going to become a different player when he's been the same player for 5 years doing the same thing. So if I'm a GM on that side, like why am I believing this? And that's on top of the fact that the Sixers are going to want to gut your team just to get rid of him. They want all types of assets and picks and everything like that. And it's just like, you can't negotiate from a position of no leverage. And they have absolutely no leverage at all. The Sixers don't have to do anything. And so I think this, to me, this situation right here just exposes the whole Clutch Sports and Rich Paul situation. Forget about dude. Like, it doesn't even really matter about him anymore. Wherever he goes, he's going to be the same player doing the same thing, because that's who he's been since he's been in high school. Like, he's not going to, and then you gave the dude $75 million, or however much they gave him. You gave him no incentive to improve. You gave him all this money knowing that he was a fantastically flawed player. You created a monster. And now that he has this money, I think that's, like I've always said, I think that's what he was in it for anyway. I don't even really think he cares. I think he's got a Kyrie attitude, but just from a different perspective. I think Kyrie actually cares enough to stick to his conviction. I think Ben Simmons was just in it for the money. And he got it, so he good.
Yeah, it does set like a bad precedent precedent going forward because I just look at, when the next CBA comes up, I'm pretty sure there's going to be owners. It's like, hey, we can't have nothing like this again. You try and hold out, your contract is voided, and then you do whatever you want. But I think for Ben, it's just like it's a mentality thing. I mean, not wanting to face that heat, going back to Philly. I mean, it's going to be 10 times as worse, visiting Philly now for him, like on.
Yeah, he can't go back there.
No. I mean, but just think of like the animosity he's going to get, when he returns there for whatever team. I do expect him to get traded possibly before like the trade deadline next year. I think when those guys who signed extensions like this summer, when they're eligible to be traded, like right around I think December 13th or 15th,
right.
That's when you'll start to see like other teams possibly biting. But I just look at what's the best situation for him. If you're Philly, I want somebody at least of equal talent. And if you look across the board, even looking at Ben Simmons' flaws, you look at what he is, one of the best defenders in the league, like in transition, one of like the most unstoppable forces in transitions, like half court needs some work. But like when you look at just the talent level, he's a 3-time All-Star. Like who do you, outside of Damian Lillard, like where do you find equal value to that? You can't bring on 21, 23-year-olds on that roster. Like you need somebody that's pretty much an all-star caliber player, an elite all-star caliber player, and somebody that's can at least put your team, if not push it over the top to where Ben Simmons will have them at currently, at least of equal footing, so you don't lose anything. But I mean, this situation does look bad on, both player and agency, because if I'm pretty sure from clutch standpoint, you go to Ben like, hey, what do you want to do? I don't want to go back there. Like you try and empower that, but like the PR behind it is so bad. And then you got to bring this guy into a new situation. Like, how is that organization going to look at him now? Like when things go bad. So it's really tough because, if he does, even if I'm a GM of another team, like I'm questioning this dude's mentality. It's like, yo, if things get tough here, is this guy can I count on this guy? And we're paying him all this money. So it's just a very odd situation.
And what he's asking for, he wants to be the guy, reportedly. He wants to go to a situation where he can be the guy. And that kind of points the arrow to possibly mid-market teams and the teams that have been mentioned as possible spots. We've heard about Indiana. We've heard about Minnesota. We've heard about Sacramento, all mid-market spots. So, as you said before, December 13th hits, and the guys that just signed their contracts become available for trade. You'll start to see a little bit more action. And this is the thing for me. If you're Minnesota has been, I probably mentioned more than any team. And Minnesota actually came out of Clutch Sports in a statement where reportedly Ben Simmons said, I don't care if I go to Minnesota. Like, man, why are you mentioning Minnesota? Specifically. So
he's real good friends with Cat.
With Cat.
Yeah.
But that's it's
this is the thing. If you are,
I agree with you too. I mean, that's why none of it really makes sense. Like you go to Cat, plays pretty much a similar style like Embiid. So like he's gonna need the ball.
Right.
He's like the 1A there. I was like, so I don't know how that works out. And then if you're Minnesota, do you trade the franchise player's best friend and D'Lo? Do you trade him away? It's like, what are Minnesota giving away? So
right, because the piece you're not moving is Anthony Edwards.
Exactly.
And that's what Philly probably asking for.
Yeah. That's
like if you told Philly, man, we'll do a straight up swap, you take Anthony Edwards.
Minnesota not taking that.
Minnesota's not taking it, but Philly would be like, cool.
That's the thing. I mean, look, they can ask for whoever, but like I said, no team is going to be willing to give up somebody who is potentially better than what they bringing in. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, of course they would do the trade straight up for Anthony Edwards, but Anthony Edwards is better. So, I mean, so that means, if you're Minnesota, you get worse by doing that. So they like I said, you're not negotiating from a position of like leverage. Like
And it's not a lot of teams or situations.
Send him to OKC, man. Trade him straight up for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Because then you can't sit. Look,
well, OKC
one thing you can't do.
OKC
One thing you can't do. You cannot send him to a situation where there's expectations of winning.
Mm-hmm.
You can't send him to a situation. You can't send him to a team that is one piece away. You can't even really send him to a contender. Like, he has to be someplace where there's no expectations.
And like you said, OKC has the collection of picks to be able to make a pick-heavy deal to entice.
Philly, you got Joel Embiid.
Shai would be a good piece coming back.
Yeah.
You put Shai with Tobias.
Great piece. And then you can put dude in OKC and we can forget about it because ain't nobody going to pay attention to it.
And honestly, let's look at it. The way the league is looking at this thing, they know he wants out. So, I mean, Philly's probably going to end up getting 50 cents on the dollar anyway.
I don't know. Not with Daryl Morey there. Like, if it was any other team, I would say they would just, all right, let's see how much we can get for him and then pick the highest one. I think Philly pretty much has got their feet, like, dug into the sand, too. Like, this is what we want. Unless you're bringing, like, a Damian Lillard over there, possibly.
They can't expect that, though.
They can't expect that.
That's an unreasonable expectation.
If this is your team, why can't you expect that?
Because you're not going to get it.
You
can want whoever. You can want whoever.
But I'm not. I think this is all about. This is both like an ego thing now, to where it's gotten to the point. I'm not about to let you got 4 years on your deal left. I'm not about to send you someplace else and take back pennies on return. I think it's going to get to that point now where, like, hey, if we can't get this, fine. You can stay at home. You're not getting paid.
They should just do it for a salary dump. Honestly, I mean, because I know they got championship expectations and they technically a contender, even though I don't actually believe that. They have to lower their expectations too, because they're not sending away like somebody who has a high reputation in the league right now. Like, and they're not sending away somebody who, even from a talent standpoint, I mean, yeah, you talk about his defense and everything like that. I still don't really see it, but whatever. I mean, but he doesn't really. What does he bring to your team? And like you said, other than a problem all the way around, because like you said, if it gets tough, is he gonna quit? Is he gonna want to check out? Is he gonna go in his little room and just play video games all day? Like, what is he gonna do? Like, you are inheriting a problem. You're not getting somebody that, beyond paper, is an actual asset to your team.
So C4, for you, the composition of a deal, are you saying that Daryl Morey wants to get back players, not just picks, but the players he wants should be equal to that player that he's given up? And that's what he's looking for.
Absolutely. If I got a guy that's a 3-time All-Star I'm paying 170 something, he's got 4 years left on his deal. And we were possibly one play away from forcing the game 7 with Atlanta, and then get into the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, I want somebody who can at least like kind of put us over the top, or at least have us right along the same
level. Point guard. That's what he wants.
Yeah.
You want a point guard.
There's only 2 guys I can think of right now that you want. You either want a guy like Bradley Beal there, or you want Damian Lillard there.
That's why I say you can go get Shai and meet in the middle.
I mean,
it's basically the same, except Shai gonna play harder, and I think he's better. He got a higher ceiling.
I guess. Well, no, there's no way Washington sends him over to Philly straight up. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't. Not Bradley Beal for Ben Simmons. I wouldn't. So that means Philly would have to send something else.
But that's where it's going to come down to. Right?
You know what I'm saying? They would have to add Maxey and probably another.
That's what I'm saying. They're going to be unwilling to give up anything except one player.
Yep.
You're not getting no extra player. You're not getting no picks. Yeah. This is who you get. That's it.
What about if you're Sacramento and Philly says, give us De'Aaron Fox?
You take that.
But Ben Simmons straight up.
You take that. I would take that straight up.
I think that could work from a financial Financials. Oh yeah, I think that could work.
It'll be interesting. Ben Simmons, Sacramento will be his squad.
He can send him over there and forget about him too.
You still have Halliburton,
yeah.
There that can play the 1 and the 2, and Buddy Hield is still there.
Yeah,
and they're not going to win. That's it. That's what I'm telling you. Like, I've been here to talk about Golden State and all that. You can't send that dude there.
No,
you're gonna wreck
expectations are too high.
Yeah, and you're gonna wreck the momentum.
Yeah. All right, man. Thank you for joining us for the first episode of this year, Snaps and Sneaks on A2S Network. We are available on our YouTube channel, which is A2S Network, and also Apple Podcasts. Just search A2S Network, and all of our previous content in this episode will be right there. On the way out, DeAndre Ayton, you guys shop that Phoenix kind of said no to the max.
I'm not.
Nope.
I'm not sold on dude anyway. I haven't been.
I'm not shocked just because of like their reputation for like paying guys. I think, he's deserving like of a max. Just looking at that organization, you can get guys there. It's not a free agent destination. I think you have to take care of your own. I mean, especially after like the sacrifices that guy made individually last season to basically, help the way the team played. So not surprised. It just, they got Robert Sarver over there, notorious for not,
They didn't have a problem throwing to that book.
Or Chris Paul, which is crazy. It's like, you just re-up Chris Paul, who's going to be like, 41 at the end of this deal, or at least close to it. So it doesn't surprise me, but it'll be interesting to see how that impacts the season. Because, I mean, I'm pretty sure that guy looks around and he's like, man, Luka just got paid.
Yeah.
But you're not on their level.
I mean, even on a small
very, very true, but he can easily say, like, dude, I'd help get us to a finals. Luka has a oh, come on. DeAndre definitely helped him get to that. As much as Chris Paul was a factor in getting that dude had a big
great series against Denver going up Jokic.
Look at what he did against Jokic. That was against the MVP. So he may not be putting up like the individual numbers you expect, but that dude is a huge part of that team, man. What is he, like 22, 23? Man, when a guy that young kind of feels undervalued, how do you as a coach or as an organization say, hey, you gotta, pretty much buy in again this year, even without having that security, and we're gonna try to run this thing back. Man, that dude is gonna be.
That's another task for Monty Williams, who had the task of keeping them together mentally last year.
Yeah.
And helping them be impactful for that squad. Once again, that 5-year 172. I mean, even in a small sample size, Denver committed that to Michael Porter Jr.
Man,
as long as his back don't go out, he's gonna get better, and he's gonna be. I mean, that's you talking about a dude that's an easy 25 point a game scorer in this league. With DeAndre Ayton, you got to ask yourself, okay, you're averaging 14 and 10. But how much better are you really gonna get? Like, how much better is he really going to get? Like, do you think DeAndre Ayton could be a 20 point a game scorer in this league? I don't. I think he's basically Miles Turner 2.0. That's me.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I just don't see it. I don't know how much better he can get even at 22.
Some people consider Miles Turner a top 30 player.
Man, all right. They can do that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you top 30 that's middle of the pack, basically. But I mean, and then some of the things I'm seeing them work on is like, this post up, these step back dribbles, and all this kind of stuff like that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that team needs you to be a force. They need you to be a physical force.
You a physical force. You the biggest dude on the court. You want to shoot jumpers?
Think about it. How many physical forces are there in the league? Like at the big position.
At the big position?
You could say Embiid, one.
Embiid, Jokic.
But would you say
Jokic? I would say Vucevic is in there. I would say Nurkic is in there. I would say
are we just talking about bigs?
Yeah, well, we talk about dominant. Like, so you kind of got to toss Nurkic out of there just from a production standpoint.
Well, physical.
Because you wouldn't call Zion a big, would you? I mean,
I would.
He plays the 4.
He plays the 5. He's a center. But I mean, that's different. That's a whole different. I'm talking about 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" or better.
Right.
You know, at that particular size, I mean,
that's not a 280 guy either. Ayton, like probably about 245.
I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm not really sold on him. I don't know how much better he can get.
Hey, man, he bets on himself. I mean,
hey, you know what? You don't even have to. That's the thing, though. You don't even have to bet on yourself. The league had basically been set up to where the market is already set. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't even matter like what you do. Like, the market is set. So that's why he's looking at guys in his class that already got paid. And typically before you could do that, they were still paying on potential. I don't know if teams are actually willing to do that anymore. I think it should go back to getting paid for production.
Man, I believe,
I think Ben Simmons is the driver of that because everything he's done has been based on potential he had produced. But you start making these guys earn their money instead of just giving it to them, you change the conversation a little bit.
I mean, you have to blame owners as well. Because, I mean, you had to kind of take a double look this summer when Cleveland committed $100 million to Jared Allen over 5 years. It was like,
that's another thing. Is Jared Allen better than DeAndre Ayton?
Right.
Yeah. Not scoring. I think Mitchell Robinson is better than DeAndre Ayton. Not scoring because you don't need, unless your big man is putting up 20 points a game, 20, 25 points a game. Only thing you really need him to do is be a rim protector, rebound, shot blocker. That's all you need to do.
I mean, that's if you relegate him to just pick and roll, dive into the bucket. Then I get Giannis.
What does he do?
Giannis is
DeAndre Ayton doesn't get post ups, so how does he get points?
We forgot to mention Giannis. Giannis is a physical force.
Yeah,
down there as well. But I mean, the way the game is played, that's one thing I saw last night that I thought was cool. Every now and then, the Bulls can sprinkle in DeMar on the box and Vooch. Like, they have two players that they can put on the box and sprinkle that in, in the midst of them running their sets, opening the court, pick and roll. Every now and then they can say, yo.
That's how you win championships. So guess what happened? When you get down to it, you got to be able to score that ball in the block.
Yeah.
You got to be able to throw the ball down inside and get something at the rim. And when you're talking about Phoenix, I think that's why they realized they probably lost that series because they had no inside presence. DeAndre Ayton can't score around the rim. He wants to shoot the mid-range jumper and the long-range jumper. And when you get down to it, you got to be able to have somebody who could throw the ball in the post who can score and get your bucket.
Yeah, that's true.
That could be a guard. It could be a wing. You know what I'm saying? It could be a big whatever. Somebody down there got to be able to go. Give me the ball down here and let me go to work on my man. You got to.
I just think as a small market team, you have to pay like those guys, like the Jared Allen deal of your Cleveland. Like we have to pay him.
Well, you got to spend your money on something.
Exactly, too. So if you're Phoenix, like, you don't want to commit this money, but if I'm 22, you just gave, a 36-year-old point guard damn near $100 million. Like, I understand, take away Luka, take away Trey, they're guards. The ball, they dictate the game. But I was like, yo, like, look at what I did. You guys asked me to do this. I did it for the entire year. We got to the finals. And now it's a problem when I want this.
Look, his numbers, just like Ben Simmons, his numbers is flat. You go look at them. They flat.
But it's the style of play. You know who's going to have the ball, like who's going to control and dictate who gets the ball in this team is going to be Book and CP. But like I said, when DeAndre misses time with that team, who's the next guy up?
Well, they're small anyway.
That's why they missed Sarge once he got hurt.
Mikal Bridges, like if that dude gets like 18, 19 a year, it's like that's another like yo, what's going on?
Right.
Like he got an extension coming up, so it'll be interesting. But like I said, I'm not surprised that Phoenix is like it's what they've done. It's crazy. Like you signed a 36-year-old point guard. I got nothing but love for CP3. Like,
I wouldn't have gave him all that money though.
But that's the crazy part to me is like, it sends a bad message to like a young dude when you're like, yo, you just gave. I understand his value, but yo, 30.
Well, maybe they saw CP as the reason they made it to the finals.
They probably did.
Huge part of it. So, but he can look at it as like, all right. He's like, all right, it's gonna be a weird season if they don't get something locked up because you know how the way these dudes are wired now with this generation. Like, yo, if he goes in there feeling salty or something like that,
he
like,
gonna pout. He's already done that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's already done it. So.
You know what? We can add, I think you can add Book to a guy I'm looking for after that experience and sitting there and watching like the Bucks celebrate and how he just kind of like stood there like and just watching them literally mouth, damn. Like just the feeling he had, like, yo, I was this close. Like,
yeah, I
could have had it. Like, if he truly has that killer in him, that Kobe in him.
There's no doubt about like
no doubt about that.
For that to be the dude's first playoff run,
yeah,
he did. So
yeah,
I'm just glad people got to see him play on the big stage because
basketball be much watch TV. Yep. All right, Snap and Sneaks. As always, we bid you adieu. Until next time, catch us on the YouTube channel, Apple Podcast. We'll go more in depth with the NBA preview next week. Opening night, I believe, is the 21st October. I know the Bulls open up on the road at Detroit on the 22nd. So, man, NBA season is right around the corner. Right around the corner. And looking forward to a pretty good season, man, with a lot of balance and a lot of talent and a lot of good games. So, for my wingman, Chris Cason, Bryan Crawford, Shaun Davis, man, thanks for joining us on